Hi everyone, just got some Showdown for you. This is like my third take, so I'm probably not going to do a whole bunch of team explanation. Pretty much just going to note that my Yenshao is Choice Scarf, and that's kind of like the reason I kind of wanted to use it. It's also a team that I've had since Fairmosa was OU legal, and in that team it was actually a Choice Scarf set, so I kind of wanted to try Mienshao out since they kind of use similar coverage moves. Mienshao, of course, having the access to Stone Edge, which I thought was kind of nice. And what do you call it? My Landorus is not actually my Stealth Rocker. It's actually on Heatran, who's actually Spadef, so we're going to go ahead and start the battle. I'm going to lead off with my Tangrowth. It's fairly safe, considering that my opponent has no reliable countermeasure. Could potentially see them going into their own Tangrowth on that. But I know that, considering that I have the Hidden Power Ice, not even Zygarde is safe from that, so I'm just going to go ahead and lead off with it. And it's pretty risk-free to just go for the knockoff, which is what I intend on doing. In comes the Jirachi, which is going to take about 39%. It seems about average damage, meaning that this is max HP Jirachi, and usually that correlates to Spadef Jirachi. So at this point I'm just going to try and weaken the Jirachi because of my Lele in the back. Yeah, so it's going to leave the Jirachi around like 22%, meaning that if I get rocks up, after a few switch-ins it'll be really low, maybe in range of U-turn, honestly. But I'm just going to go for the knockoff again, just try to scout. If you wanted to go Magearna, that would be fine, because I'd be able to see if it was Z, and I'd be able to see how much it did, which would tell me whether or not it's either Trick Room or Shift Gear. So I'm just going to go ahead into my Heatran on the Tangrowth and just threaten it out. Figure that since my opponent lost their Assault Vest, they're a lot less inclined to stay in, meaning that I can reliably get my Stealth Rock up. I'm just going to go into my Tangrowth, which of course has Hidden Power Ice. This is kind of my stop to Zygarde on this team, at least Coil variants. If it's got Outrage, I guess it can be potentially annoying, just because I don't resist that stab. So my opponent's going to go ahead and sub up on the Heatran and then proceed to Toxic the incoming Tangrowth. I'm deciding to just go for the Hidden Power Ice. I have no real reason to predict, especially when that thing can pretty much run through my team if my opponent decided to go for another substitute and I decided to switch out. That would have been a really bad situation. So I'm just going to knock off the Magearna right now. What do you call it? This does confirm that it is, of course, Z, because I didn't knock off any sort of item. I'm just going to go back to Heatran as my opponent goes for the Flash Cannon. Because my opponent is not likely to stay in, I'm just going to go for the Toxic. Apply a little bit of pressure on the Rotom Wash. Basically, in doing so, I don't have to take as good care of my Tangrowth as I would have if the Rotom wasn't poisoned. So I'm just going to go ahead and switch it into a Volt Switch, as my opponent's going to proceed to bring out their Magearna. So at this point, I see that there's a potential for my opponent to go for their Z move if it is what's it called? The Steel or Fairy one. Being that I have a Landorus that would pretty much just go down to it, and Heatran is considerably weak already. Although that doesn't necessarily make sense when considering that they're probably not going to get to set up and sweep, given that I do have Heatran. So I'm just going to go into my Landorus, and I'm going to be real, I was expecting a T-Bolt, because my opponent really didn't make any effort to predict the Heatran, get any sort of like damage on it. They did knock it off with Tangrowth earlier, but I noticed that they didn't really go for any sort of attack with Magearna. It's possible that they don't have anything to hit my Heatran with, and that's why they just go for Flash Cannon. But it seems very likely that my opponent predicted my Landorus switching, so I'm just going to go ahead and go for the safe Earthquake. I know that most people would be kind of pressured into going for their Z move or trying to set up, in essence, to regain some lost momentum, but because I do have the Tangrowth in the back, I don't really feel the need to go for that prediction. And at this point I feel that Landorus has pretty much served its worth. I'm probably not going to be able to do much more with it. Um, and yeah, it's at such low HP that if Zygarde has extreme speed, which is a possibility, although it's not likely because it's shown toxic, basically I don't see it being able to set up both a Rock Polish and a Swords Dance. So that's why I'm going to let it go. But not without damaging the Rotom, taking clean 54%, which is going to be a little bit, what do you call it? Well, it's just going to leave it very low after the poison damage has taken its toll. So at this point, I decide to go into my Greninja. It seems kind of risky, but I'm actually just going to go for the Hydro Pump, knowing that the Assault Vest on Tangrowth is pretty much knocked off, and that I can go for a series of Hydro Pumps to pretty much pressure my opponent into letting me either heavily dense something or allow me my transformation to Ash Greninja. So I'm just going to go for the Hydro Pump, like I said. The main reason I wanted to do this was because it prevented Magearna from setting up. I know that if Magearna sets up, there is potential for it to roll through the rest of my team, and I'm not quite sure that Mienshao will be able to outspeed it. So that's actually why I do go for the Hydro Pump. I end up missing the first one. I was kind of committed to going for 2 of them. Like I said, forcing my opponent to do that, but because I missed the first one, I'm only going to stay in for the second one, and I'm going to try to basically get my Heatran in safely so that I can go for a Lava Plume and basically just threaten out the Tangrowth. They're actually going to go for the Earthquake, which probably would not have killed my Gren, meaning that they must have predicted Heatran. That's the only explanation I can really come to. I'm just going to switch out to my Tapu Lele, and I'm going to go for the Moonblast. Now, I think that damage is, what do you call that? Damage would be considered Scarf, because, of course, there's no boosting item. I think I'm Shed Shell on this team, and so I'm just going to go for the Moonblast twice in an attempt to convince my opponent that I am actually carrying the choice specs. Again, this is all about preventing that Magearna from setting up. So I do have the Taunt, which I'm not sure if I mentioned that earlier in the beginning of the video because it is my third take. But I do go for it, and I do prevent the Magearna. I catch it as it decides to shift gear, and I'm just going to go ahead and Hidden Power Fire to get some good damage on that Magearna. Maybe put it in the range of like Stone Edge if I need to from Mienshao. But yeah, so I'm just going to go over the Hidden Power Fire. My opponent makes a pretty unnecessary prediction in my opinion, and that they go for the Thunderbolt trying to catch the Greninja. I don't think that was necessary at all, because had they taken out Tapu Lele, Zygarde would have been able to pose a much bigger threat, given that Tangrowth is actually toxic. So yeah, not really sure that that was the best play. My opponent's just going to go ahead and sack the Road of Wash, which of course is going to dive to the Hidden Power Fire. So at this point my opponent is down to 4 Pokemon. They've got a Jirachi, obviously that Zygarde is still healthy and can set up on, could potentially set up on anything that isn't Tangrowth. And by anything I'm pretty much referring to like missing Hydro Pump and stuff. So I kind of have to position myself so that I can kind of clean with Mienshao in the late game. So my opponent actually goes to Jirachi. I'm not quite sure what they were expecting. Maybe they thought they would live, maybe it was a misclick, I'm not sure. But all I do know is that there is a loss of a Jirachi on my opponent's side of the field. So at this point, I'm deciding to play the game as if this Latios is Choice Scarf, because I know that this team that my opponent has is fairly slow, and that it's, what do you call it, and that I need some sort of damage on it to clean with high jump kick. So, you know, if I allow myself to U-turn out, maybe that's some good damage that I can use later on to just clean with high jump kick. So I'm just going to go into Greninja, also knowing that because I didn't really show a lot of prediction, I kind of just showed that I was making the safe, obvious move. I decided that my opponent would probably just opt to go for the Psychic. Also, like I said, the Tapu Lele is a really big threat, and getting that removed allows them to pretty much wreak havoc with Zygarde. So I'm just going to go into my Greninja, like I said, on the possible Psychic, and I'm just going to go for the Dark Pulse, since it will deal a lot of damage to that Latios if it doesn't just knock it out, because I am Choice Specs. So anyway, I'm going to go for the Dark Pulse. It does about 30%, which is nice information because I know that I can basically break any sort of substitute. I actually get a higher roll in that I get 36%, and I'm pretty much just going to trade my Greninja for that for damage on that Zygarde. At this point, Tapu Lele is pretty much able to just go for the Moonblast. I know that I realize that the that the Magearna is weakened, and that Latios is pretty much the only thing that can revenge kill it. I'm just gonna let the Tapu Lele go down because I'm fearing the Scarf Latios. I know that that's kind of common on these sorts of builds, especially since they didn't take any Life Orb recoil damage. Yeah, I was gonna say something about possibility of Soul Dew, but honestly, that didn't even cross my mind. So I do knock off with Tangrowth, and that does mean that Mienshao is able to pick this off with the high jump kick. So that's actually gonna be a good game, so long as I can connect. Magearna should go down. So yeah, actually yes, but spoilers. But I don't know. I had fun with this game. I was just thinking about the long term as opposed to focusing on like what my opponent was thinking, which is, in my opinion, one of the better ways to play Pokemon. And there's actually like this really cool article about how Pokemon is a game of deception, in that you try to give your opponent as much false information about your style of play as you possibly can. So I'll definitely link that in the description. But yeah, so this is pretty much it. I'm almost done with finals. I have like one more panel interview. Pretty much taken all the tests that I have to take. So yeah, that's pretty much it. It's gonna do it. We're at 12 minutes, so see you guys next time.